Hello guys, may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all. Today we'll complete the lesson of complex numbers, and today we'll learn how to find or how to solve the equation in the complex numbers. So stick around and keep watching. Before solving the equation, let's take a look at the square root of negative 9. How to get the answer. You know that the square root of negative 9 doesn't belong to the real numbers, but it does belong to the complex numbers because you have negative underneath the square root. But how to get the answer? You know that negative 9 means 9 times negative 1. So the square root of negative 9 is equal to the square root of 9 times negative 1. Alright. And negative 1 is equal to I squared, you remember? I squared is equal to negative 1. I to the power of 3 is equal to negative I to the power of 4 is equal to 1. So negative 1 is I to the power of 2. So it's equal to the square root of 9 I to the power of 2. Now, what is the square root of 9? It's 3, and the square root of I squared is I. So directly, when you have a negative underneath the square root, that means you have I in the answer. So the answer is 3I. Now, let's solve this equation. Solve in the set of complex numbers. 3x to the power of 2 plus 12 is equal to 0, as long as you have one x term in the equation. So there is no need to factor or use the general formula. Just move 12 to the other side. So 3x to the power of 2 is equal to negative 12. And the coefficient of x squared is 3. So to get rid of 3, you have to divide both sides by 3. So 3x to the power of 2 divided by 3, and negative 12 divided by 3. 3 and 3 cancel each other out, so you have x to the power of 2 is equal to, and negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. Now, solving the equation means to get x, not x to the power of 2. So how to get rid of the power of 2? Alright, you have to take the square root of both sides. But remember, when you take the square root, you have to put positive or negative on the other side because the power is even. So the square root of x to the power of 2 is x is equal to positive or negative the square root of negative 4. You have negative underneath the square root, so the answer will be positive or negative. The square root of 4 is 2, and because you have negative underneath the square root, that means I. So the answer is positive or negative 2i. Solve the equation 4x to the power of 2 plus 100 is equal to 75. You have one x term, so move 100 to the other side in the opposite sign. So 4x to the power of 2 is equal to 75 minus 100. And 75 minus 100 is equal to negative 25. So 4x to the power of 2 is equal to negative 25. And the coefficient of x squared is 4, right? So dividing both sides by 4. 4x to the power of 2 divided by 4, 4 and 4 cancel each other out. So you have left with x to the power of 2 is equal to, and on the other side, or in the other side, you have negative 25 divided by 4. All right. Now, to get rid of 2, the power of 2, so you have to take the square root of each side. Now, the square root of x squared is equal to x. And here, remember, positive or negative because the power is even. So positive or negative, the square root of negative 25 divided by 4. And the square root of 25 over 4 is 5 over 2 because the square root of 25 is 5 and the square root of 4 is 2. But you have negative underneath the square root. So remember, when you have negative underneath the square root, that means it's 5 over 2i because the square root of negative 1 is I. So the answer is x is equal to positive or negative 5 over 2i. Solve the equation x squared minus 4x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now here it's hard to factor this expression because it's difficult to find the two factors multiply to 5 and add to negative 4. So directly you can use the general formula. You remember the general formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And a, b, c are the coefficients of x squared, and this is a. A is the coefficient of x squared, and b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant term. All right, so a is equal to 1, because here the coefficient of x squared is 1x squared, and b is negative 4, the coefficient of x, and c is 5. All right, let's substitute these values in the expression or in the general formula. So x is equal to negative b means negative times negative 4, which is 4, plus or minus the square root of b squared is negative 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 5, divided by 2a, or 2 times 1. All right, now is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus, and 4 times 1 times 5 is 20, divided by 2 times 1 is 2. So it's equal to 4 plus minus. The square root of 16 minus 20 is negative 4 divided by 2. Now, what is the answer to get the square root of negative 4? You remember? You have negative underneath the square root. That means the answer will have I. So it's equal to 4 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2, right? But you have negative, so it's 2i divided by 2. Now let's break it off the expression or the fraction. I mean, you can divide each term by 2. 4 divided by 2 and 2i by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2 plus or minus, and 2i divided by 2 is 1i or I. So the answer is x is equal to 2 plus or minus I. Solve the equation 2x squared plus 6x plus 5 is equal to 0. And now here it's difficult to factor the expression on the left-hand side. Or you can use the quadratic formula or general formula. So x is equal to, you remember the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And a is the coefficient of x squared, which is 2. B is the coefficient of x, which is 6. And c is the constant term, which is 5. All right. So let's substitute all these values in the quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative b, which is negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4ac, means 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 5, all over 2a, which is 2 times 2. All right, so x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 4 times 2 times 5 is 40, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 5 is 40, divided by 2 times 2 is 4. Now, x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 40 is negative 4. Remember, the square root is, the number underneath the square root is negative. So that means the answer will have I. And of course, the denominator is 4. Now, x is equal to negative 6 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2, but we have negative, so it's 2i divided by 4. Now you can break it off. You can divide each term by the same denominator. So it's negative 6 divided by 4 plus or minus, and 2i also divided by 4. So 2i divided by 4. And the last step here, you can just simplify the numerator and the denominator because they are divisible by 2. I mean, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus or minus. And here the same way, they are divisible by 2. They are both divisible by 2. 2i divided by 2 is I, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the answer is x is equal to negative 3 over 2 plus or minus I over 2. All right. If L and M are the roots of a quadratic equations, or the quadratic equation, x squared plus 1 is equal to 0, then L to the power of 2018 plus m to the power of 2018 is equal to blank, and you have multiple choice here. A is negative 2i, B is 2i, C is negative 2, D is 2018. Which one is correct? All right. So going back to the question, roots means what? All right, means the solving or the solution of the equation. So the first step is to solve the equation. So x squared plus 1 is equal to 0. Moving 1 to the other side, you have x squared is equal to negative 1. Now, to get rid of the power of 2, taking the square root of each side, so x is equal to positive or negative the square root of negative 1. All right, just remember, you have negative underneath the square root. That means I. So the square root of 1 is 1, and you have negative, so it's 1i, positive or negative 1i. There is no need to write down 1, so it's just positive or negative I. That means the first root is positive I, which is L, because the roots are L and M, as I mentioned in the questions. So L is equal to I, and M is equal to negative I, which is the second root. All right. Now, what is the question? The question is find L to the power of 2018 plus M to the power of 2018. All right. So L, which is I to the power of 2018 plus M, which is negative I to the power of 2018. But how to get I to the power of 2018? You see here the power is so big, right? Just remember when the power is a multiple of 4, if I is a multiple of 4, that means the answer will be 1, because I to the power of 4 is equal to 1, I to the power of 8 is equal to 1, I to the power of 12 is equal to 1, you remember? So here, if the power is a multiple of 4, the answer will be 1. Let's make sure that 2018 is a multiple of 4 or not. Let's divide it by 4. If you have a whole number as the answer, so that means it's a multiple of 4. But if you have a remainder, so just focus on the remainder. All right, let's divide. 2018 divided by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And 1 divided by 4 is 0, because 1 is less than 4. Now take 8 with 1. So to be 18 divided by 4 is 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. So you have 2 as a remainder, right? So 4 times 4 is 16, but you have 18 here. So 18 minus 16 is 2. So the remainder is 2 out of 4. So the answer will be 504 and 2 out of 4. Just focus on the remainder, which is 2, just 2. So the answer will be I to the power of 2, which is the remainder, plus, and here it's the same value because it's negative I to the power of 2018. Why? Because here the power is even. So there is no need to write down negative here, because negative to the power of even number is equal to positive number. So just get rid of this negative. So it's I to the power of 2. Now, I to the power of 2 is negative 1, as we mentioned before. And also I to the power of 2 is negative 1. So minus 1 negative 1, or negative 1 minus 1 is equal to negative 2. This is the answer. So the answer is C. Find 1 plus I all to the power of 2020. What a problem. Now here, the choices are 1 minus I all to the power of 2020, 2 to the power of 1010, 2 to the power of 1010 multiplied by I, or I to the power of 2020. All right, let's just focus on the question, which is 1 plus I to the power of 2020. Of course, you can't expand the expression because the power is so big. All right, so let's break it off, break the power. You know that 2020 is 2 times 1010, and why we chose 2 times 1010, because we will focus on 2 as a power, because it will be easy to find the expression to the power of 2. And just remember, the rule is when you have a to the power of m all to the power of n, that means a to the power of m times n, and vice versa. Now here, the powers are 2 times 10, 10. That means you can make it like 2, the first power, and the second power is 10, 10. All right. Now we need to find 1 plus I to the power of 2, all to the power of 2. And we have another rule here. When you square the parentheses, a plus b, all to the power of 2, multiply the first term by itself, a to the power of 2, and the second term by itself, which is b to the power of 2. And don't forget to multiply the first term by the second term by 2. So a times b times 2 is 2ab. And in the same way here, 1 times 1 is 1, and I to the power of 2 is negative 1. You remember? I to the power of 2 is negative 1. And here in the middle, you multiply the first term by the second term by 2. So 1 times I is I, and times 2 is 2i, plus 2i. Now, just doing the math, 1 minus 1 is 0, just simplifying. So it's 2i all to the power of 10, 10. But if you see here the multiple choice, you didn't see 2i to the power of 10, 10. All right, so let's just focus on the choices themselves. I mean that we'll focus on the first choice, and the second choice, and the third, and the fourth. Let's just focus on the first choice, which is 1 minus I to the power of 20, 20. And the same way here. The power is so big, so we can break it off. It's 2 times 10, 10. All right, so 1 minus I all to the power of 2, all to the power of 10, 10. And don't forget the rule. The first term multiplied by itself, and the second term multiplied by itself, and the first term times the second term times 2. So 1 times 1 is 1, and negative I times negative I is positive I squared, which is negative 1. All right. And in the middle here, you have to multiply 1 times negative I times 2, which is negative 2i, all to the power of 10, 10. All right. Now, here you have left with negative 2i to the power of 10, 10. And remember, the power is even, so there is no need to write down the negative. Just get rid of the negative. So the answer will be 2i to the power of 10, 10. It's the same answer that we got before. Interesting. So the answer is the first choice, which is 1 minus I all to the power of 20, 20.